everybody. Welcome to Talking Poop, the podcast where we talk about the movies, music, and media that we all love. I'm your host, Jason Bromley, and with me today is a very special guy, a guy by the name of Brian.
Gun.
The Machine. Gun. 'Cause America. What's up?
Brian Gunn. Brian Gunn Books on Instagram. You do Brian the book guy. Gunn.
Brian for a fucking America.
I figured out a nickname for you the other day.
What?
It's Jason, go fuck yourself, Bromley.
You know what? I've been asking for a nickname, and all I've been getting is just horse shit from everybody. Another guy called me fucking stinky ass or something.
That one fits. That one fits right in there.
And you guys are a bunch of fucking assholes.
Yeah.
I should have known to ask you guys for something as little as a nickname. And all I get is fucking grief.
Yeah, well, that's what you deserve.
Man, way to start this podcast off on a negative tip.
No problem.
Last time we were together, Brian, you and I were at this year's Phoenix Fan Fusion, a.k.a. Phoenix Comic-Con. How has your life changed since then?
My laptop broke. So it's
God
pretty shitty.
damn.
Yeah. I mean, we have probably scores of new fans by now, I'm assuming.
At least
60
to 63 new fans.
Wow.
Yeah. We went and we showed up and we fucking killed it.
I'd say we conquered Phoenix Fan Fusion.
We conquered Phoenix Fan Fusion, and I think that the podcast will never be the same. It's not gonna be just fun anymore. Now it's like our fucking jobs to be good.
We have expectations now.
Yeah, people come to this show and they expect us to bring it.
They saw us live and we blew their panties off.
Maintenance crews complained afterwards that there was panties all over the floor of our room.
And the carpets were sopping wet.
Yeah. I think, if anything, they would complain that you dropped our cards, like, all over the floor.
That was good marketing.
Everywhere you walked, I would see you just pooping out our business card onto the floor.
I was sliding them under the stalls in the bathroom, trying to initiate conversations.
People were trying to take a dump, and you were bothering them.
I was leaving them on the urinals, and then I was just dropping them as we went around. I also gave them out to people. I poked that big, muscly Thor right in the chest, told him to come to our podcast.
Yes.
He did not.
Yeah. You and Alicia woke up a sleeping man and frightened him badly.
Yeah.
And then did not run away. You were like, hey, come to our podcast.
Check out her butt crack on our podcast.
Yeah. I heard a lot of that too, like from across the room. I would hear, hey, that's her butt crack. And then people were like, oh.
Putting Alicia's butt crack on the cards was a solid marketing strategy.
I think me using you as my marketer was a bad idea because you're a tad aggressive.
I disagree. Well,
you're a tad aggressive, and I saw a lot of scared faces. I think, if anything, you scared people away from our podcast.
There's a lot of beta males.
Did you see a single person that you handed a card to? Did they show up?
I can't remember who I handed thousands of cards to.
I only printed up 500, Brian.
I can't remember who I handed hundreds of cards to.
But yeah, next time I think. There was a funny story though where Alicia handed one to a guy and was like, hey, come to our podcast. He was like, how about you go fuck yourself, stupid lady? And then beautiful Vivian Vengeance went and said, who was that said that? And then she went over there and like fucking sweetened him up.
Yeah.
And he left a friend instead of a fucking enemy, which is what you would have just been fine with. You were like, what? You want me to go choke that guy out?
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, any excuse, anytime.
Right, yeah. Any throat in a storm.
That's a good one. I'm going to write that down.
So Brian, you want to tell the folks what we're here to talk about today?
We are here to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart today, which is video games. The evolution of video games and how they've changed over time and kind of where we're at now. What's the current market at? So,
and what's important for this episode, I think, is that every week I say that we're a podcast about movies, music, and media, and then we've just been talking about movies over and over.
TV shows and movies, yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of us branching out, which we owe our fans now that we're such big deals after our live performances. So last week's episode was about Blink-182 and that band, and so that's music. And then this week is about video games and the evolution thereof, which is media at its best.
Yeah. We could definitely talk about video games a whole lot, but we're trying to
Well, I started going down this rabbit hole last night, and I was like, holy shit, we picked a very broad topic. Like I said, hey, Brian, you want to do Mario Brothers? And you were like, no, let's talk about all the video games.
It's maybe a little too much for an hour long, but we'll get there.
Yeah, no. So we're gonna do like a quick once over, and then I hope that later on in the podcast we wind up like coming back to some of these games that we're gonna mention today.
Out here we entertain ourselves at home. So we got an Atari video game. There's so many different games to play. We especially like Space Invaders. Zapping those little devils from outer space. It's fun.
We're gonna go way back.
Because
you weren't even.
If you forget, Jason has 1 foot in the grave. He is so old.
I am old as shit.
Yeah.
So old that I had my first game system was the Atari 2600.
Was that just Pong?
This was post Pong, actually.
Okay.
But the Atari did make Pong,
right,
thus becoming the first in-home console. But we're gonna start with the 2600, which is where my video game life started. So I had the Atari 2600, which came out on September 11th, 1977.
Never forget.
Nothing crazy other than the Atari coming out has ever happened on September 11th.
That's true.
That's the craziest thing that ever happened on September 11th.
I was still just hanging out in my dad's ballsack.
In 1977, yeah, I wasn't born either.
Okay.
But that was when it came out. It took a little while for it to like catch up and people to like be like, wait, what? Like,
I'm sure Japanese people were excited about it first.
Well, Japanese, all these release dates that I'm gonna give are like months or years after Japan gets it, because Japan always has cool shit.
They were way ahead of the curve on video games.
Exactly. So the Atari 2600 was what they released for America. And that was the first at-home system to use interchangeable ROM cartridges.
Okay.
So it was a big deal, not only that it was bringing like video games home, but like Pong, you bought the whole system and all you could get was Pong.
Right.
This was the first system that you could buy with interchangeable games that were put on a cartridge.
It's crazy to think that we're, 40 years removed from that and what we have available today and what it started as.
Exactly.
When that was a big deal to be like, you can change games now.
Yeah.
You don't need a new system for every game. Holy shit.
Exactly.
Today, what people want. Today, what people expect. It's insane.
Yeah. I think out of any technology in our lifetimes, other than maybe like going from rotary phone to like having like our cell phones,
the cell phone.
Video game technology has come the farthest. Because like fucking cars are still just cars.
Right.
They don't fly.
Yeah, it's like we're working on electric cars. It's like we're working on it, but we have a whole bunch of nerds working on video games.
Yeah. Video games is where like that's where the excitement is. So that's where all the good nerds are working right now. Is video games.
We don't need them working on climate change. We don't need them working on alternative vehicles. They gotta keep pumping out VR.
And that's the thing, because if we fuck up our world that we live in, as long as we go to a VR world that's way cooler and better, then we don't need our world to be good.
I don't care if I look outside and it looks like, the road is going on, post-apocalyptic situation. I can put on my VR and play a post-apocalyptic video game.
Yeah, I can go fucking sit in the grass in VR. I don't need any grass in real life. It can just be a fucking desert planet.
It helps get through this Phoenix summer.
It really does, because we goddamn live in a desert planet.
This is the worst.
It feels like even inside it's just 1,000 degrees.
We live on Tatooine. It's two suns.
For sure.
We just get baked up on all day with the sun. Just.
If I could figure out a way to be evaporation specialist, a moisture farmer, yeah, I would do that for a living. Because being a truck driver, driving around in the Phoenix heat, just watching my tires melt, and my truck just like limping along the road is no fun.
You didn't know how hot your legs could get going from a parked vehicle to the entrance of a building. Like your feet.
You didn't know that it was more dangerous to put your seatbelt on and burn the living shit out of yourself than just leave it off and risk flying out of the front windshield of the car.
Yep.
It's a nightmare. But I digress.
So we play a lot of video games over the summer.
Yeah, video games is all there is to do in Phoenix over the entire summer. So the Atari 2600, when it first came out, it sold for $199, which doesn't sound like that big of a deal now. But back in '77, with inflation, that's $823 of today's money.
I was gonna say, it wasn't that long ago. Like, just the Xbox One was $299, PlayStation 4 was $299. So it's like, to charge $199 for a console 40 years ago, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, it was an expensive thing. You were a baller if you had an Atari 2600 when they first came out. So like I said, they came out in 77, but they didn't really pick up steam until 1980, and that's when they released Space Invaders for the home console. And at the time,
when Empire Strikes Back came out, so I'm sure.
But seriously though, like space was a big thing back in the 80s,
sure.
like in the early 80s. That was space exploration was like the future, and that's what everybody wanted to play in their video games. So Space Invaders was like the biggest deal. You were like, oh my god, this game's amazing. Which basically it was just Pong except vertical.
Yeah. You're just shooting a block.
Yeah. So my favorite games for the Atari 2600, it was a pretty basic bitch system back in the day. And I remember my mom buying it and saying it was for my dad. But I don't think my dad ever played video games ever. So I wound up being the only one playing it.
It's just your parents fucking with you?
I don't know if it was. Like, I want to ask them, were they fucking with me? Because a lot of times they would do that to try to make a surprise. Because I remember my mom bought it while I was at the store with her. And she put it in the cart. And I was like, what is this thing? And she was like,
shut your mouth.
This is a thing for your dad.
I don't want to hear
It's
another
your dad.
fucking question out of you today. You ask a million of them.
Right.
Be fucking quiet.
Right.
And you're just like, I'm getting a fucking Atari.
Yeah. I didn't even know what it was at the time. Like, I remember having it all wrong. Like, do you remember, like, ever being a little kid and seeing technology or having it explained to you and you fucked it up because, like, your brain was stupid?
Yeah.
So, like, I thought this machine was, like, the old-timey machines that you put your eyes in and look at and you put a quarter in and then you spin.
Nickelodeons.
Yeah, dude.
Nickelodeons.
Yeah, Nickelodeons before SpongeBob. Like, the ones you would look in and you turn the crank and it shows you, like, a little flip picture movie.
You used to put a nickel in them.
I thought Atari was like that, except for, like, you look inside of it and you see, like, video games.
Or boobies.
Or boobies. Yeah.
That's what the first ones were for.
The Nickelodeons, yeah, they were for boobies. But, that's what I thought Atari was for, and I was wrong. So we plugged it into our big fucking TV that had one button that just turned it on or off. It was just a big, huge button in the middle of a controller. And it had rabbit ears on it so that you could, like, you had to twist them every time you wanted to watch TV and fucking you had to find the fucking sweet spot where, like, the picture came in good. And even when you played video games, same thing. It would be the fucking, like, rolling, like, black line through it, and then you had to, like, fucking adjust it, like, move all the wires and shit. But anyway, I remember, like, one of the first games that I was big on was Pac-Man. Having Pac-Man at home was a big deal because up until then, if you wanted to play Pac-Man, you had to go to the pizzeria. And it was that, like, sit-down Pac-Man where you, like, sat across from somebody.
And that's, like, it's a good chance of being bullied there, if I've learned anything from you.
Oh, for sure. Because people would slap their quarter down and be like, I got next game.
Yeah.
And then other guys would, like,
I'm still playing.
Put their quarter right in the middle of the screen and keep their hand there and be like, I got next game. And you're like, oh, fuck. All right. You want to just take my game over?
Okay.
And they're like, I think that's best. Yeah. Or they'd put their pizza over the screen. And
that's a real dick move.
Yeah. I've had that happen to me. It was fucked up. So to be able to play it without being bullied or harassed was super cool. And then there was Donkey Kong, which was, like, at the time, like, wow, look at these graphics.
Yeah. That's a gorilla. I can tell what it is.
Right. But that was also the introduction of our main man, Mario.
Yeah.
It's me, Mario.
He was the little plumber dude in Donkey Kong. And you know what I read about that was that I was like, why would Japanese guys pick for their company mascot to be a little Italian plumber guy? And basically it was just like their idea of what he looked like was just like like what we do, like slant eyes when we, like, pull our eyes aside and we're like, oh, look, I Chinese, I Japanese. They're like, these stupid Americans, big nose, big mustache.
Give him a stupid mustache.
Yeah, and they were like, what do Americans do for a living? And, like, Japanese people, like, they think of us all as construction workers.
Yeah, we're all blue-collar workers.
Big, brute construction workers, yeah, and that's what they made Mario. And
they're like, make him so stupid.
Make him look stupid like American. Big, stupid shit in his pants. Stupid American.
We always just a little too far.
Maybe.
We always just
take it just a little too far, yeah. So Pole Position was another one. That was, like, the first racing game, and that game kicked ass.
Yeah.
And then, but my favorite was toward the end of the system, and this one really pushed the graphics far, and that was Pitfall.
Ooh, I've never heard of this one.
You never heard of Pitfall?
Never heard of Pitfall.
It was basically like Indiana Jones in his first game.
Oh, okay.
And like there were like these little dark spots on the
yeah.
bottom of the screen. You'd run. There was like these little vines, and you had to jump on the vines.
I know which one you're talking about now.
Swing across, and you had to jump across alligators. And then you could go down little ladders, and you were like, "Oh, you can go into the underground temples."
It's sad that like
scorpions
on
in there.
our phones now, Temple Run is a better game than like Pitfall.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that is Temple Run is like the progression of Pitfall through the years.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. So after Atari started to die out, it had reached the end of its ability to like progress.
That console just couldn't take it any farther.
They had that huge snafu with the ET game. They like licensed ET. They spent a shit ton of money on it, and then it was the worst fucking thing ever. Yeah, there's a whole documentary about it, and they wound up burying it all in a landfill in Jersey.
Wow.
And like they dug it up in 2018. Atari like denied that happened. Happened. They're like, no, we sold out all our ET games, and then they just like found this like underground cove of just unused cartridges. So Nintendo comes onto the scene. They're an 8-bit system, and they came onto the scene in 1986.
When you get hold of the Nintendo Entertainment System, when you master Rob, the video robot, and meet the challenge of Gyrobites, when you shoot the light-sensing zapper, when you play the system with so many arcade hits, you're playing with power. The Nintendo Entertainment System Deluxe Set. Batteries not included, Super Mario Brothers, and other games sold separately.
So when Nintendo first came out, if you look into like the history of this stuff, it's a very cutthroat industry. Video games. It's insane how cutthroat it was. Nintendo comes out and they're like this little like up and coming company, and they wanted to produce. They had this new technology, and it was basically like a better microchip, so they could fit more information, which is the 8-bit, onto this microchip, and that was what it was going to advance them. They could add a microchip into their game that could like advance graphics. So there was a chance for it to like grow where Atari just like died because they had reached what the limitations of their system. Nintendo was going to be able to push it a little bit farther. So Nintendo originally wants to make a deal with Atari, because that's what you do when you're the little guy. You go to the big guy and you say, hey, like, let's team up and go together. But then Atari found out that Nintendo was selling their Donkey Kong game to Coleco. And Coleco was putting it on like computer systems and floppy disks and things like that. And Atari was like, nope, we're shit canning the whole deal. Like, you guys can fuck off. And so Nintendo was like, okay, so they fucked off, and then they produced their own software. Unfortunately, Nintendo did not learn from their mistakes, because Nintendo then made this mistake later, but we'll get to that when it comes up.
Nintendo's a funny company, because there were so many times throughout their history where they could have just gone under. We would have had no more Mario, no more Nintendo systems, and they would have been a page in history. But somehow, that's one company that like always seems to come back out on top.
Well, and that was one of the things, is that when Atari fell apart, it crashed, and it like consumers lost all interest in video games. Like, we could have never had any more video games. Nintendo came forward and said, we're not going to make the same mistakes that Atari did. And they didn't make that particular mistake. They made their own brand new mistakes, led to their fuck ups, but
their growth.
They're still around.
Yeah.
So, but there probably wouldn't have been like the video game war had Nintendo played their cards right. What was so cool about the Nintendo system was that it came with 2 controllers. It had a fucking light gun that looked like a badass laser.
Yeah.
And it came with Rob the Robot.
When you get hold of the Nintendo Entertainment System, when you master Rob, the video robot, and meet the challenge of Gyrobites, when you shoot the light-sensing zapper, when you play the system with so many arcade hits, you're playing with power. The Nintendo Entertainment System Deluxe Set. Batteries not included, Super Mario Brothers, and other games sold separately.
Do you remember Rob the Robot?
I don't remember Rob the Robot.
Rob the Robot is ROB, stood for Robotic Operation Buddy. And Rob the Robot had, he basically didn't do much of anything, but he had like a little, what do you call it? Like a top. And it was like a CD, and it spun in his hands.
Okay.
And that's about all it did. So you were supposed to be able to play some games with it. I had like when I got my Nintendo, I got the basic bitch, like one controller, a game, and the Nintendo. But I had a friend who got like the light gun and the fucking 2 controllers and Robbie the robot and everything.
Sounds like they bit off more than they could chew. Like they had plans for it, and then.
Right, and that's the thing is that it was basically just like a marketing point that was like, holy shit, you get like this crazy robot with this Nintendo, like that's awesome, you know, and that made it seem like it was like this big deal, this new invention. But Robbie didn't do much of anything, so it was kind of pointless. Even the light gun, while it was fun as hell to play Duck Hunt and Hogan's Alley, like there weren't a lot of games that you could use the light gun on. So.
Yeah, it was really just the Duck Hunt that it was made for.
Right. And Duck Hunt was a great game, and it was worth just having that just for Duck Hunt. But
so that fucking dog was laughing at you.
Yeah. Did you know that if the other person picked up the B controller, that you could control the ducks?
I did not.
Everybody doesn't know that. Yeah. If you pick up the B controller, you could make the ducks kind of go up and down, like you could move them around.
I bet my friends did know that. They just watched me just fire wildly at the screen.
Yeah. But it really it used to piss me off because the ducks were hard enough to hit without your fucking half retarded friend picking up the other controller and like making them go all over the place. So you know the push down design on a Nintendo, you put the game in and then you push it down and it would stick.
Yeah.
That was not a necessary thing. It was actually a gimmick that they came up with to make it seem more like a VCR, like a front-loading VCR, so that people would be like comfortable with it. Like it was like technology, but it was technology that we're familiar with. And that wound up fucking them in the end because it created all kinds of problems. Because not only having the port open like that and moving it all the time, it made a lot of dirt get into the system. But then also, like, the pins in the cartridge had to connect with the pins inside the system, and by pushing them in and all that stuff all the time, you were constantly bending those pins and fucking them up.
Remember having to blow on your video game cartridge?
Time went on, and that's the thing, is that so they would stop working after a while. So people came up with blowing it. Another thing that I used to have to do would like put the cartridge in just till like past the lip and then like push it down hard so that it didn't like all the way connect. And then also like when the game started getting dirty, my mom would take alcohol on a Q-tip and she would rub the little processors.
Your mom just loved you.
Yeah. Your mom never did that for you?
Fuck no.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We've been like, figure it out.
Well, my mom only did it because the games were so expensive. So she was like, we're not letting these things go to waste. We're going to figure out how to fix them. So, but what I was reading last night is that blowing on the system and putting alcohol in those things just degraded them faster. It didn't do anything to help.
Thanks, Mom.
But it did do something to help because the game wouldn't fucking work until you blew on it. And then it fucking worked.
Yeah,
so.
you had to play that thing like a harmonica sometimes to get it to work.
No, yeah, but the problem was too is that like so many kids would like spit into it while they were like blowing on it.
Well, it's all good to go.
Yeah, that like you were dirty. A lot of kids were like dirtying it up more, but that did. I don't know what it was about blowing on it, but it made it work. Later on, they added some new stuff to the Nintendo, the NES. To like again to like their whole thing was like we can fucking spice this thing up as we go. So as we're getting into everybody's got a Nintendo, so now we need the next thing. What is it? The Power Glove. Now you're playing with power.
Man, I forgot about that.
The Power Glove was they made a commercial for that thing that made it look like you could just play Mike Tyson's Punch Out and just swing your hand.
It made it look like the VR gloves that we want today.
Exactly, and it was not that at all. You had to program the Power Glove, and so all those buttons on the top, those were the programming buttons.
Which no one knew how to use.
No, nobody knew how to use it. Nobody could figure it out, how to do it. And there were only 2 games for the Power Glove. It's not like you could just play all your games on the thing. And you certainly couldn't play Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. There was a fighting game.
The game advertised for it.
Exactly. There was a fighting game that came out for it, but it did not work with Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and they said that like anybody that had the Power Glove was like, this piece of shit doesn't work or do anything. If anything, it just looked cool. In Ash vs. the Evil Dead, they changed the Power Glove into Ash's robotic hand, which is super cool. Yeah, and it was heavily featured in that movie The Wizard with Fred Savage.
Okay.
That was the one where they made it look like you like play Mario 3 with the Power Glove on.
Right.
Like, no.
We're still waiting on that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
still
not
trying
even.
to get those VR gloves out.
Yeah, it's not even a thing now. Do you remember the Power Pad?
No.
So this is a thing that it was a pad that you put down on the floor, like a blanket, and it had like
Is this for Dance-tronic?
No, they never did dance games, which is weird. But it's kind of pre that. So you plugged this bitch in, this pad in to the fucking machine, and then you'd throw it out on the floor, and then it had little colored circles on it, just like a Twister game.
Yeah.
And then you would like stomp down as hard as you can, like do running games, and like they had like hurdles, so you'd like run, and then jump, and you would run, and jump, and then like the pad would slide out from under you and yank your whole fucking Nintendo onto the floor. Yeah.
So even before the Wii U came out or the Wii came out, they were really trying hard to like get people up off their asses play video games.
Yeah, but it didn't work out. The other thing too is that my video game system was upstairs, so it just sounded like a pack of goddamn rhinos was coming through the floor,
so
and my parents
were just like, "Shut up!
What are you doing up there?" I was like, "I'm playing video games. Sounds like you're gonna come through the floor." And then I would just be like, quiet. I was like, "Okay, I'll be quiet." And I was like, "Sorry guys, my fucking parents are fucking assholes, fucking shit."
He was just talking to his imaginary friends.
Yeah, they were like, "How does it sound like there's 4 people?" And I was like, "There are." And then so after the power pad was no longer a thing, then we needed to be able to cheat on our games because they were too fucking hard. So they released the Game Genie.
Dude, those side scrollers were fucking nuts sometimes.
They were hard, man. And if you could get to the very end, the last boss, and die, and you had to go back to the beginning of the game.
No saves, no like, hey, load from a last checkpoint or anything.
Nope, none of that shit.
And I came from a household, like my parents were super strict, so no TV Monday through Friday. No TV. And then they just didn't buy us game consoles. So every weekend I was over at my friend's house, like trying to play video games, and I sucked at them because I didn't have my own console to practice on. So those side scrollers used to give me fucking hell. Never could beat them.
Yeah, I've never beat Mario Brothers.
I've beaten one version of Mario Brothers on the Game Boy.
But did you cheat?
No.
Did you do the cheat?
No.
Yeah.
But it took me 2 weeks in the car in the middle seat of a Honda.
Right.
To do it.
Now, I would never admit that. Like, back in the day, my friends would be like, "Hey, you beat Super Mario Brothers?" I'd be like, "Yeah, like my first day." But I never beat it. I still to this day haven't beat it.
You had to keep your rep up for sure.
Yeah.
I guess that was the good thing about not having video games. No one expected me. Like, I'd go over and they'd be like, "You're just terrible."
Yeah.
Good for you.
He's got those little water games that like blow the little rings up over the hoop.
Guys, you want to play Hungry Hungry Hippos? I got Risk.
One of the hippo's heads is missing. Like, there's like different colored marbles. They're the clear ones with like the little swoops in them. Like you get it for marble games. So let's see. After Game Genie, we had Nintendo Power Magazine. Did you ever have Nintendo Power Magazine?
I had friends that used to get the video game magazines. Yeah.
Yep, that was me, dude. And like the middle of it would have a fold out like a Playboy, but it was like a whole map to like the whole level of like Mario 3.
I used to think people were so fucking dumb for buying like strategy guides and everything. Be like, just fucking play the game, dummy. And now I play video games as an adult, and I'm on YouTube all the time. Like,
oh yeah.
How the fuck do I beat this
How
level?
do you beat this bullshit? So here's what happened with fucking Nintendo. So Nintendo creates this like marketing thing where they don't want any third-party distributors making their games. They don't want anybody like coming in and snarfing their shit. That was a big problem with Atari, is that Atari, you could like pirate games, you could make like people could produce their own games and stuff. And Nintendo didn't want that. So
and people thought they were being snobs when they first started that.
Yeah.
They thought they were being real dicks about it.
Yeah. But Nintendo, what Nintendo did to try to curve that a little bit is they put their stamp of approval on there. So every Nintendo game had that gold sticker that was like, this is Nintendo's stamped approved, like this is a good game because Nintendo made it. Later, they did start letting third-party developers develop games, but they had to use Nintendo's cartridges that they had to buy from Nintendo. They had to buy those black sleeves and all that stuff from Nintendo.
A little bit of a fuck you.
A little bit. So, and designers didn't like that at all because Nintendo could essentially set their price point whatever they wanted, and they set it high for that stuff. So the third-party developers, it almost wasn't worth it for them to develop a game and try to make it because it really had to be successful.
That's the reason why video games are $60 a pop nowadays.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was reading in some of my research yesterday. I was reading that a Nintendo game cost them $4 to make, and it cost us $39 to purchase it back in the day. And games are pretty much still like when they come out they're $60, but then when they drop they're $39. So we're paying in 2019 we're paying 1980 prices. So I guess that's good. It could have been awful, but it still pokes me in the ass when I pay $60.
You wish it'd be
for it.
like data, like it would have gone the other way.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You used to get like a floppy disk. It was like, this floppy disk has 2 megs of memory. It was fucking $60. Everybody chill. Now it's like, I got this flash drive with a terabyte and it was a penny.
Yeah. So where Nintendo didn't realize they were going to have a problem. They had their whole system locked down where like no one was going to fuck with Nintendo. Who do you think fucked with Nintendo?
PlayStation.
No.
So
Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster Video said, we're going to start buying these games at cost, like at Toys R Us, and then we're going to rent them out to people. And we're going to bypass having to pay Nintendo any money for that. So Nintendo said, what the ever-loving fuck, you guys can't rent our games?
They said, we're going to start Netflix and put you out of business.
So what they did is Nintendo took them to court and said, you can't rent our games. The judge said, no, they can rent your games because they've purchased the product. They can do whatever they want with it. But your intellectual property is in the booklets that you put in it. So that's why your fucking games you rented never had a booklet to learn how to play the game. So what Blockbuster did was they started printing up their own labels on the inside of the box, but it never gave you the story.
Nope.
And it never really told you how to do like
yeah,
the A and B button, but there's sometimes more to it, and it would never give you those extra stuff. Exactly. And Nintendo games were not the easiest thing to figure out if you didn't know what you were doing.
I think partially just because the Japanese like to laugh at us.
It's 1,000 degrees in here, by the way. I'm sweating
profusely.
Yeah.
Just bring you guys this podcast. We are in a room sweating together.
Yeah, it is 105 degrees outside, and we have to turn the goddamn air conditioner off to be able to film this or to record this podcast for you.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Nintendo continued.
So that's really all I have to say about video games.
I'm gonna go swimming. Nintendo continued to dominate until 1993, even though the more powerful 16-bit Sega Genesis had been released. Did you know that the Sega Genesis was out at the same time as regular Nintendo?
Yeah, I do remember that.
All right, well, fuck me. I'll just not talk anymore.
I remember having a friend that had both. He had a Genesis and a Nintendo, and I remember not liking the Genesis. It was big and it was clunky.
People didn't. It took a really long time for Genesis to start to take off, even though it was more powerful.
Sonic. I was not a fan of Sonic.
Sonic wasn't out yet at this point.
I just remember playing that on Sega and just being like, this game's dumb.
Yeah, Sega was the underdog for sure. So Nintendo was not worried about Sega when it first started coming up. Later on, it wound up being an all-out fucking war. Mario. Let's talk about Mario. Mario was designed... I'm going to try this.
Oh.
Mario was designed by Shigeru Miyamoto and Takahashi Tezuka.
Well done.
So they were planning on moving into a new system, and they wanted Mario to be like their thing that would translate them from system to system. So that they realized that like market comfortability was a big thing with video games. Like if you trusted it and you'd been playing on it, you want to stick with it. So that's where Nintendo was kicking Sega's ass, because Sega came out of nowhere and they had this, like you said, this Sonic the Hedgehog guy. We didn't trust Sonic the Hedgehog. Mario, like he was in our homes every week on the cartoon. He was Captain Lou Albano. Remember that?
No.
And there was cartoons, and there was just Mario made us feel safe and happy.
It's me, Mario.
And Sonic was this punk that just came out and was just like, by me, I'm cooler. I'm cooler. Look how fast I go.
Run fast.
And you're like, yeah, but you're not super, Sonic. All right. So, 1989. Sega Genesis comes out, replacing the Sega Master System, which nobody had and nobody cared about.
Right.
The Sega Genesis, however...
With the name Genesis, which means like beginning, first.
You're right.
Just forget about that other one we tried.
And their whole marketing ploy was to like bash on Nintendo. They were like the beginning of like smear campaign.
Game Ward, man.
Yeah, they were like, fuck Nintendo, you're a loser if you have Nintendo. Sonic's cooler, Sega's cooler.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do? And what if you don't have blast processing?
Their system was all black and looked badass.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And they had 3 buttons instead of 2.
They had a massive. That Genesis had a massively uncomfortable controller.
It was very. It gave you hand cramps
Yeah.
after playing it for a while because it almost like made your knuckles like out toward the outs, and then it had 2 triggers up on the top, so you could do some crazy triggery things with it.
Which is why I think our generation is so good at fingering the ladies.
Seriously, it's because our upper buttons are like just like fucking
Crazy
built,
dexterity.
dude. Yeah. Tap 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 your ass. Genesis came out with Altered Beast. Do you remember Altered Beast? God damn it, Brian, you're such a baby.
I know.
Come here, baby. Altered Beast was like you were a man, and then you would
with the Amish. Just not allowed to play games. This sort of it was Arizona Amish.
Yeah, you're like, I would draw little rings in the dirt and the rocks would do battle.
Go chop that wood.
Genesis was coming out with games like Altered Beast, Ghouls and Ghosts, Shinobi. They were all just a little more edgy. They seemed a little more violent, and Sega's graphics seemed a little bit more crisp, and it just seemed like there was more action to Sega graphics. Nintendo's graphics seemed more cartoony, big black outlines, stuff like that. Christmas of 1991, Sega finally outsold Nintendo 2-1.
Oh shit.
Yeah, they were starting to kill it. So that led to infighting with within the Sega organization because Sega Japan broke off and created Sega America, and they became kind of 2 different companies. And Sega America was like, we're gonna do our own thing. Like, Japan didn't like Sonic the Hedgehog at all. They didn't want that to be the thing that like was the head of their company or any of that stuff. They didn't understand it.
20 years later, they were proved right. They're like, see, I told you, it's fucking creepy. Look at it.
Well, they don't even have hedgehogs in Japan. Like,
that's true. And Sonic, I never understood that. Like all the other rabbits, animals are like normal sized. He's a hedgehog, but he's like as big as the Doctor.
Right. He's blue.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. He wears tennis shoes.
I guess I just always wanted Sonic's backstory. I was always just like, how'd he get this way? And they were like, fuck it, run.
Well, if you're interested in this stuff, there's a book called Console Wars. I can't remember right off the bat who wrote it. But Console Wars is about the fight between Sega and Nintendo, and they really talk about like all the stuff going into creating Sonic and the fight with Nintendo. It's a great book if you're interested in this in this kind of stuff at all. But it got nasty, and then it was nasty between Nintendo and Sega, and then it got really nasty between Sega Japan and Sega America. And Sega Japan was already wanting to move away from the Genesis into a disc-based system. They were already pushing the Saturn, and the guy that was here was like, no, fuck that. Like, the life of the Genesis can go on. We have a lot of life left in it. Let's keep working on it until that. Let's not keep pushing the new thing on the consumer, because if you make them buy a console every 2 years, they're going to get pissed at you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sony, take a fucking number on that one. I've had my PlayStation 4 for like 2 years, and they're already telling me I got to buy a PlayStation 5 now.
Yeah, but it's been out for longer than 2 years.
So at this point, Sega's starting to kick Nintendo's ass a little bit. They're the cooler system, of course. So what's Nintendo going to do? We've got a new system for you motherfuckers. And what are we going to call it? Super Nintendo.
Super. Those Americans are stupid. Just put the word super in front of it. They'll fucking love it. Whereas most people don't even realize there's a difference between Nintendo and Super Nintendo.
What should we call our new Nintendo? We call it Super Nintendo. Why? Because it's super! Super Mario!
Because they dropped the bomb on us, that's why.
When you decide to step up to this kind of power, this kind of challenge, this kind of flying, crashing, feeling, when you decide to get serious, there's only one place to come, the games of Super Nintendo. No one else creates this kind of experience, because no one else creates these kinds of games. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
Okay, so Super Nintendo comes out in 1991 with Super Mario World, which fucking blew the jeans off everybody.
Yeah, that was huge Mario game, multiple levels, multiple worlds, multiple different looks for Mario, where you could get the feather, now you could get the fireball. I mean, stuff that you'd had earlier, but now it was color. It was making him look different. You were traveling to different places, and the levels were hard as fuck. It was a very, very challenging game.
Yes, it was. But it had save points throughout it. You beat the level, and you would slowly continue on the map, and so you didn't have to replay levels over and over and over again.
Fucking God.
Early in the releases for Super Nintendo, they released Star Fox, which was like the first like flight simulator type game that had like 3D like environments where you could move through stuff. You were flying at the screen, and so it gave you like this
it wasn't
3D
a side
thing.
scroller anymore.
Exactly.
It was right behind the cockpit.
Yeah, so we started getting these new kinds of games. But what really made the Super Nintendo happen was that they released Street Fighter 2, which was the most popular arcade game. The most popular arcade game was now home, and you could own it. And dude, I remember like Street Fighter 2 like changed video games for me. You know, I remember just spending quarter after quarter after quarter going in there and getting better at that game.
I mean, now you had a fighter that you could play with your friends, so you didn't have to sit there and play like the Mario game anymore, where like one of you played, one of you took a turn, or like even if you were both playing, it was still kind of like, you had to work together or whatever. Now it was like you could team up for like a 60-second battle, fight the fuck out of your friends, and then pick new characters and do another 60-second battle, you know, and it was like, that's how you wasted a Saturday.
Yeah, and it didn't matter if you were tough in real life or if you were a little nerd. You were a fucking fighter when you put on Street Fighter.
And you know what? Stop picking Honda and using the extendable arm attack from the crouch down sumo. We get it. We get it, okay? Stop. Pick someone else.
You could still rock a Hadoken at that, though, and fucking knock him on his fat ass.
Yeah, you could.
But
if you knew
I almost didn't want to, because when he fell down, you could see his fat ass. Like, you could see his cheeks out the side of his diaper.
It was just his sumo wrestler outfit, which is there's nothing
it's yucky
sexual about it, even if it turns me on.
Yeah. Whenever I used Blanca, I would get like some weird wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't know what Blanca was.
But he's green in hair.
But he's green and he's got red hair, and it just he has a big hairy red bush.
He does.
So
he does.
He's like from Brazil, but he's got red hair, which was weird.
Maybe they just didn't know what people from Brazil look like.
Yeah, that's now that we know that Nintendo's racist, that's probably what it was.
True.
So this is at the point where now it was really creating a divide. Like, you were a Super Nintendo person, or you were a fucking Genesis person. There were no other kids in between. Maybe with you, because you weren't either.
Yeah, no. So I was just playing whatever my friends had.
Right.
And was it Mortal Kombat that came out for Sega, or was that PlayStation?
So Mortal Kombat came out at the same time for Super Nintendo and Sega.
Yep.
That was one of the first ones that came out both consoles same time. The difference was Sega allowed the blood that was in the arcade game. Nintendo decided to cut out the blood.
And we were bloodthirsty little kids.
We were bloodthirsty little kids. This was a huge deal. Yeah. If you were like, I'm finally going to get to play Mortal Kombat, which was like the next thing past Street Fighter. But you had the bloodless edition. Meant you were the dickless kid.
Yeah.
As opposed to your friend who had a Sega who was fucking just like doing fucking fatalities and shit and just tearing people's spines out.
Yep.
It made you not feel cool to have a Super Nintendo.
For sure.
Yeah. And that sucked.
They've always been more of the kid-friendly console.
And I think that was where Sega Genesis set itself apart and like really like took over for Nintendo at that point.
Yeah.
So, just when we thought the Super Nintendo had nothing left to offer, they dropped Donkey Kong Country on us.
Donkey Kong Country.
Donkey Kong Country changed everything, because just when you thought that the Super Nintendo was dead and gone and that there were nothing graphically you could do, Donkey Kong Country came out and had the craziest looking computer graphics. It was like Toy Story before Toy Story came out.
That's a good point. Good way to make it.
It was so fucking cool.
Was it over the shoulder?
Boulder holder? No, it was a side scroller.
Was it?
But you could play 2 players at the same time on the screen at the same time. It wasn't no split screen bullshit. It was awesome. And you could like team up, and like Donkey Kong could pick up little Diddy Kong and like throw him into the trees and get shit that you couldn't get, you know, otherwise.
Nice.
And you had to like blow each other out of cannons and stuff and out of barrels.
Yeah.
And it was just fucking total teamwork. And they got 3 Donkey Kong games out of that. And I didn't need anything else in my life from Donkey Kong. I swear, dude, I just played that thing all the time. A cool little side story is that Donkey Kong 2 was hard as fuck, right? And you had like a girl and a guy.
Right.
And so you didn't play as Donkey Kong in that one. You had Diddy Kong, and then I can't remember the girl's name.
I want to say Diddy Kong, but I feel like that's
it
wrong.
might be Diddy Kong. But me and my high school girlfriend would sit there and play the game, and like we would treat each other with like sexual favors if we did good in the game.
I thought you said it was a cool side story, and that side story was going to make us gag.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't know why that came to mind, but it did. By the time that Donkey Kong 3 came out, we knew something. The clouds were rumbling. We knew something was happening, and there was going to be a change.
Yeah.
And that change came in the splitting of the three, where we had three choices. Sony had a new platform coming out that they were calling this some play something, the Station of Play.
The Station of Play. You skipped over the 64, which I think is arguably the Nintendo's most important console.
All right, let's talk about that.
Still cartridge based. Huge fucking controller with the Z button on the bottom. Remember that controller had 3 prongs coming off of it.
Yeah, that controller was like hanging onto 2 big old cocks.
Yeah, and you could put the third one in your mouth while you played, and you could get that Z trigger with your tongue if you're really good. But the N64 is the first console where we see Super Smash Brothers, which is all of the Nintendo characters they can fit into a game. This is my favorite Nintendo game. All the characters you can get into one game, and they just brawl. They just beat the shit out of each other. Which also you can play with 4 fucking friends. The N64 had 4 controller hookups. You could play with your friends. All 4 of you could be on the screen. 2 of you could play against the computer. 4 of you could play against each other. It was amazing.
Rocking some Mario Kart on there was where
Mario
it was all
Kart
about.
is also where 64 came out. Rogue Squadron came out for 64, which is where you could fire the tow cable on the Empire Strikes Back level, and you could bring down the walkers with your snow speed. I mean, just shit you'd never seen in a video game before. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of 64 games that I'm neglecting to mention, but this was I didn't have a 64, again, with my parents. I had to go over and play, but I swear to God, every single one of my friends had a Nintendo 64.
This was, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Nintendo 64 was really where the first-person shooter came out with GoldenEye. Yeah.
James Bond GoldenEye. And if you pick Oddjob, if you fucking pick Oddjob and we're playing GoldenEye, I'm going to slap you in real life, okay? Wow. It's bullshit. That guy is shorter than where your crosshair is at. So you got to take that extra 2 seconds, which is not easy on that stick on the 64 controller. It's a piece of shit aiming stick. All right, we are spoiled now with our console and our controllers. Piece of shit aiming stick, and you're trying to shoot Oddjob in the head, and there's this little bald man Asian running around. All you can do is shoot his hat off, and he punches you in the dick until you die.
Wow.
Yeah, it was frustrating.
I remember playing that game, and for the first time getting horribly nauseated and feeling like I was going to throw up from playing that game.
That's the game where I realized that there was people who were so vastly, universally, like, better at video games than I was, that I was never going to be able to catch them, and so I might as well just fuck around. So I think that's when, like, we'd play racing games, and I would turn around and go the other way around the track. Right. Be like, fuck you, I'm just going to crash in whoever has the lead, because I'm not winning this thing.
Right.
So that's that. I mean, you'd pop around a corner in GoldenEye, and you'd book a headshot, and you'd be like, what? I didn't even see anybody. All right, cool.
Yeah. So I do remember that. I remember Mario 64 was... I didn't enjoy it as much as Super Mario, and I didn't play it as much.
Yeah, it was not as good. Mario lost a little bit of something as he came onto the 64, and it was more over the shoulder. They had a Star Fox game come out for 64, which was still pretty good, but I would definitely say, like, Mario lost a little something.
So did Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong had a game come out for 64 that didn't even hold a candle to... It had some games, though, that were killer.
Yeah.
Well, this is the time where I was old enough. I had my own job. Before, I was always at the mercy of my parents to what system I was going to get. I had to factor in what my sister wanted to play more, because it wasn't just for me.
Right.
It had to be something for, like, the whole family. So this was the first time where I had the decision to buy my own system. And a friend of mine had the Sony, and he would invite me over to his house, and he would play Tekken and kick the ever-living shit out of me with every character before he'd let me go home. And so I'd go home like defeated and crushed every day. It was the worst thing for myself.
This is what I was talking about, like the kids who had the consoles and the kids who didn't. You couldn't keep up if you didn't have one.
What was weird, and I didn't think it was weird at the time, was that this was like a 30-year-old man, and I was like a 16-year-old kid. And he would just destroy me and then be like, get out of my house, bitch.
Destroy that ass.
Yeah. All right, so we're looking at PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and then probably the Nintendo 64 were kind of... Yeah. Those were the three that came out. I remember it now, yes.
And 64.
And that was the whole thing with the 64, is that they didn't go to the disc system yet.
They stayed with the cartridge.
They stayed with the cartridge, and that was like the big thing, is like, uh-oh, which one do we pick?
Yep.
That's what it was. Okay.
The cartridges were a little more reliable, but I do still remember like people having a blow on the 64 games, but not as much.
Right.
Not like every fucking time.
Right. Well... I wasn't sure if I should go with the the old school Nintendo, if I should go with Sega because, you know, they were tried and true. This new Sony, I wasn't sure. What if it didn't pick up? What if they came out with like 10 games and then it didn't fucking do anything?
Right.
So I was super nervous.
Dreamcast.
But I went with I made the right choice, and I went with the Sony PlayStation.
Nice.
And I went with that because of one single game, and that was Resident Evil. Resident Evil for me changed everything. Like, I was like, you can have a real fucking experience in a video game now.
Yeah.
Resident Evil was like exciting. Resident Evil was scary. It awakened sexual things in me I didn't even know about.
You wanted to have sex with dead bodies for the first time?
Not the first time, but it definitely reminded me.
You just recognized it as like...
Yeah, like I was like, oh, this isn't just a passing thing I whacked off to. This is like gonna be a thing for my whole life. And so the funny thing about the PlayStation is this is where we go back to that thing that happened before, where Nintendo fucked themselves in the nuts, and they essentially doing the same thing that they did to Atari back in the day, where Sony had come to Nintendo and said, hey, we want to make a new disc-based system that's going to be on CDs, and we're going to call it the Super NES CD.
Yep.
And Nintendo was like, yeah. And they went all the way forward with their plans, and then at the last minute, Nintendo realized that Sony's plan was to let anybody who wanted to make a Sony game for the PlayStation, any company who wanted to do it could do it. And Nintendo was like, oh, no, sir, that's not how we work things. So at the last minute, like literally they were going on stage where Sony was like standing like off stage, ready to go on stage and like announce that they were going to be partnering with Nintendo. And Nintendo was like, and we'd like to introduce our new partner, Philips Magnavox. And Sony was literally like in the wings like, what the ever-loving fuck did you guys just do? And Nintendo was like, yeah, fuck you, we're going to make a new system with Philips, and you can take your little silly game system and go.
Forgot where you came from. You forgot your roots.
That's right.
Nintendo.
You forgot your roots, boy.
Got a little too arrogant up at the top.
So Sony went back. They said, well, we're going to try to develop this ourselves. We think that there's money in creating a video game system. They did, and
Thank God.
Arguably, they're the top seller right now. They're the biggest.
I don't think you can
video game
argue they have
system.
the best performing system right now.
Yeah.
Like the PlayStation 4 right now is, I mean, it blows the Xbox out of the water.
I agree with you, but there's probably some angry listeners right now just banging on their fucking car stereos.
I'll tell you what, man. I have an Xbox. I have an Xbox for the games like Halo that I can play with my friends. But I know that the PlayStation is a better console. There's the games that only come out for either one, and I used to be like, oh, I like the Xbox games more. But I will say today, if I had the choice, I want to really fucking play the Spider-Man games.
yeah, that game.
PlayStation.
That game is the mall. So when they Sony did try to go to Sega for a little while, and they were like, hey, let me show you this thing that we want to do. We want to do a CD-based system. And Sega was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool, but we're not interested right now. Then like 2 months later, Sega CD came out.
Yep.
And those motherfuckers stole it. But Sega CD was a bunk-ass system. You couldn't do shit on it.
I had a Sega Dreamcast, which came out a little later, but it was still CD-based.
Right.
And it was a piece of garbage.
Yeah, the Dreamcast
had a huge memory card that went in the middle of your controller. So that's how you saved your data. And it made the controller huge and clunky. The games were fucking terrible. I remember I just had one game, I don't remember the name of it, but you just ran around, you killed people, and you tried to collect coins with your friends. And it was so repetitive that even as teenage kids, we were like, this is fucking stupid.
Remember the Rumble Pack, though, for the Nintendo 64?
Yeah.
That thing was crazy.
That made it feel cool.
Sony definitely perfected that with the DualShock controller.
And that was the Dreamcast, and that came out in 99 in North America.
Okay, so that's where I fucked up, because
they were disc-based.
The Sega Saturn was not the one that came out then with the... So it was the Sony PlayStation that came out, the Dreamcast, and the Nintendo 64. Those were the three that came out together.
That were out.
So I fucked that up.
And I remember I got the Dreamcast for real cheap. And the Saturn came out before all those. The Saturn came out in 94. But the Dreamcast was supposed to be their disc one, and it was supposed to be awesome. And, you know, a couple of my friends had it. And I got one for like a year or two after they came out because they were already so cheap at Bookman's that I was able to pick one up with, like, you know, my yard mowing money.
Right.
At a used bookstore. That's how bad they were.
That's about how much it's worth, too.
Yeah.
All right, so Sony goes off, makes their own hardware, their own software, and they come out with the Sony PlayStation, and that's what changed everything. And their biggest thing at the time was that they had true 3D graphics, and they were able to show that through bringing Virtua Fighter onto their system. Virtua Fighter was like Tekken Light, and Tekken was like the big one that came out for the PlayStation.
I was gonna say, I like how you brought up Tekken because I fucking love Tekken when it came out. I thought it was better in Street Fighter. I thought it was better in Mortal Kombat. They had, they basically had Bruce Lee on there,
right?
And that was like the coolest fucking guy on there. Plus, you could break dance as Eddie Gordo. You could just mash all the buttons. You didn't need to know shit. You just know you could break dance.
Yeah,
so that was fun.
It was a button masher for sure. And then PlayStation went on to create, Crash Bandicoot became their marketing thing. And I don't care what you fucking say, Crash Bandicoot is funnier and cooler than Sonic ever was. Like, those Crash Bandicoot commercials back in the day were so fucking funny. He was just a guy in a suit. He'd be on a bullhorn.
Yes.
And he'd be like, hey, wake up.
Those were great.
Hey, plumber boy, mustache man, your worst nightmare has arrived. Pack up your stuff. I got a little surprise for you here. Check it out. What do you think about that? We got real-time, 3D, lush organic environments. How's that make you feel, buddy? Feel a little like your days are numbered?
I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
You're hurting my elbow.
Is that Italian?
No, Bandicoot is an Australian name.
PlayStation had a really good marketing campaign. They were, if like Old Spice is kind of like that quirky advertised you today, that was PlayStation back in the day.
Yeah, they were definitely out there like making it happen, and they were like making it cool without being like, hey, we're so cool, believe us because we say so. They were like, we're going to prove that we're cool. We're going to show you our dick, not just tell you about it. So
they'll send the dick pic.
Exactly. Then they went forward with Resident Evil, which became a thing, in case you hadn't heard.
I gotta say I hated because I hated that you were like a highly trained agent, but you couldn't move and shoot.
Right.
And I was just like, this is great. I gotta stop every time I want to pop a zombie. And like, this is just terrible. And and I know it's all part of the genre, but like, you never had enough ammo.
No.
I played one that was obviously, I think, much later, and I think it was for GameCube. It was Resident Evil 4, and they were like, yeah, go in there and get the president's daughter.
Right.
Here's a 9mm pistol and 2 clips of ammo. Good luck. And I was like, there's no Marines we could send. Like, I don't get any backup here, like air support. No, it's just me. All right, cool. Let's do it.
That's all you need. Tomb Raider came out at that time.
Tomb Raider.
Changed things forever.
Video game crush and those triangle titties.
Oh my gosh, I felt so dirty. Yeah. I would sit there just to try to get her in like a good angle.
Yep. There was another game I played. It was a PC game called Trespasser, which was another female main character, but it was first-person point of view, and her arm was broken. This was a Jurassic Park game. You crashed on Isla Sorna, and you had to fight your way off the island, but your arm's broken. There's no crosshairs on the screen for your weapons. You actually had to raise it up and look down at the iron. Yeah, it was a very challenging game. But her health bar was a heart that was tattooed on these huge double E titties. So you could just look down all the time and see her health. And I got so distracted as a teenager looking at those that often I would look up and there would be a dinosaur getting ready to eat me.
Oh man, that's the worst. I remember like hearing that if you went into Laura Croft's mansion in the first one and like stood up on the statue and did a backflip into the pool, that she would come out naked.
Right.
So like I probably sat there for like 2 hours.
Yeah. And it's just some kid that was like spreading that around school.
Yeah, it absolutely was. It was an internet rumor, dude. It wasn't even real. They just wanted to like fuck with people, and they totally got me on that one. I remember fucking playing some Twisted Metal. That was like the coolest fucking car game ever.
For those of you who don't know, that's basically like a race car derby where you're just in a big circle arena and you're driving these different cars crashing into each other.
Yeah, but you had rockets and you could shoot at each other and shit. That was good stuff. And then the scariest game that I've ever played to this day is Silent Hill. And Jesus Christ, that was where I realized like, wow, Resident Evil is kind of scary, but Silent Hill was like I had a hard time sleeping.
You had nightmares about it.
Yeah.
So Silent Hill, one of the cool things about that first video game they did with Silent Hill is they didn't plan to have all that fog and stuff, but then they were like, we don't have like these consoles aren't going to let us do the graphics that we want to do, so you're not going to be able to see as far as we want you to see in this game. So they threw that fog down to basically like help the graphics card not have to render as much at the same time. But it made the game 1,000 times scarier.
So scary.
Made the game just so much worse. And then the fact that the music would come on, but you couldn't see anything through the fog yet.
Yeah.
So that music would come on, letting you know something's close, and you're in there shitting your pants.
And you had that
3
radio.
rounds you have left.
Yeah.
And the radio's going off, and the music's going off, and you're looking around the fog, and then that big triangle head comes out and just shoves you up his asshole.
Oh, that was so scary.
Yeah.
That was such a gnarly game. And that was at the time where Now Microsoft throws their hand into the ring.
So that was 2001 when Xbox gets introduced, and
Yes.
Microsoft decides to try this whole console thing out. And I gotta say, for their first console, not bad.
Not bad at
For the-
all.
for
And
the fact
Halo
that-
was a
Yeah.
it was a knock it out of the park success for them.
I honestly, I don't think you have an Xbox today without Halo. If they hadn't done Halo as well as they did back then, you don't have the Xbox today.
I don't think you have, like, if they wouldn't, Halo was the start of online gaming.
For sure.
Like,
And
that was where
that's where
this
I first
whole
played
thing
online.
became a thing, is first person shooters, online gaming.
And then, not to mention, I'll give a shout out to Red vs. Blue. If you ever watch that show.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah.
All spawned from Halo there too. That game is the reason I still have an Xbox today. I still enjoy playing different versions of Halo with my friends.
Right. And Halo was the one thing where I was like, God, got a PlayStation, can't fucking play this Halo thing.
Yep.
You couldn't get online with your PlayStation. I don't think till PlayStation 2, I think you could get online, but it was far beyond my capabilities of getting online.
And I do think they came out around the same time, PlayStation 2, Xbox. They came out around the same time.
And then Nintendo, again, threw their hat in the ring, and they were like, we're going to throw you something new. They came out with the Wii.
Well, that's a little later, but the GameCube was the initial competitor against the original Xbox and against PlayStation 2 was GameCube. And it was cool because they went with those mini discs, which I really liked. I don't know, there wasn't anything different about them. It was just kind of like, hey, that's a Nintendo thing. These discs are like the size of a Triscuit cracker. And it kind of made it cool.
Right.
Whereas the Xbox were full size, PlayStation was full size. I did like how PlayStation, you could open it and put your disc in. The Xbox, every time you put it in, you were feeding into the tray, and sometimes as your Xbox got older and older, for example, the first Xbox I had, my brother had taken to Iraq first.
Right.
So it survived Iraq in his tent, and then he gave it to me and was like, "This sucks now, so I'm buying a new one. You can have this one." I was like, "Sweet."
Yeah.
And it sounded like it was eating my games as I would load it in. It was like, and you're like, "Oh, it's not good."
Yeah.
It's not getting that one back.
There's a pound of sand in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no good. Xbox, though, was one of the first systems where you could just pay $200 for a system, and 2 weeks later you get the little spinny red light of death, and you're just fucked.
Yep.
Your
and
system's just fucked.
You call Microsoft and they go, "Your warranty ended yesterday."
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
Because we're Microsoft.
And that's a hard thing. Like, that happened a lot to a lot of people I knew.
It happened to me.
That got those early Microsofts, got that fucking... Was it a red light or was it a spinny light? I don't know.
It was the red light of death.
Red
it
light
was
of
right
death.
where your green. It normally is a green light on your thing to let you know your Xbox was on. And it was red.
Why would they even put a red light on there?
To let you know. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to do anything. Just go buy a new console because you're fucked.
You are fucked.
Yep.
So it must have been PlayStation 3 when the Nintendo Wii came out.
PlayStation 3 is when the Wii came out, and then you had Xbox 360. That was Microsoft's second console. They came out with 360, which was much better. If you remember, and I have already I've complained about just about every console's controllers on here.
Right.
But the original Xbox controllers truly take the cake as the most uncomfortable controller you had. You needed a family, basically. You needed another person in the living room to say, "Hey, jump on the B button when I'm pressing this up." You needed two people on the same controller because those things were fucking monstrous.
Right.
And then they completely changed it for the Xbox 360, which is basically the same thing as the Xbox One controller, and it's very comfortable now.
Excellent.
Whereas PlayStation, they got it right the first time.
Yeah, they've just
And
stuck
they were
with it
just
for
like,
years.
Yeah,
and
just
years.
leave it.
Yeah.
And then it's not broke, don't fix it, which
Yeah.
I applaud. I hate companies that are like, we have to change things up just to change things
Well,
up.
and it's nice too because they're backwards compatible. So
Yep.
you have because those controllers are fucking pricey, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, like $60 for a controller.
Apparently, my Xbox controllers are made out of glass and bird bones because if you drop one of those, you're fucked, and it's
Right.
a $50 replacement.
Yeah, I've dropped my PlayStation controllers many a time and been like,
I have
it's fine.
two dogs and a 5-year-old. How is of course it's hitting the floor all the time.
That thing's gonna be hitting the floor for sure.
So we're talking about the evolution of video games, and I said we were going to get to where they were today. And there's two things I want to talk about today. One of them is the rise of indie games, which is really cool. So the whole thing we've been talking about is these big time producers like Nintendo and Sony and Sega, Microsoft. They had the stranglehold on the games. But when the PCs came out, when I want to say Windows 95, Windows 98, Windows XP, 95 you had your first games like Age of Empires and stuff. But people then started realizing they could build their own games on these systems and share them. So now indie games is a really big thing on the PC where this guy, your friend made a game and he's going to share it with people. It didn't come from Nintendo. It didn't come from Sony. And they're really good fucking games. Turns out, the fans out there really know what they're doing. And and when they're left to their own devices, they can make some good games. So I would encourage everyone, go check out an indie game. Before you go buy a $60 game for the next console, just go and check out an indie game on your computer and just see what's out there for $5, for $2, what you can buy. You can buy these amazing zombie games for, $5, and you've never played such a good game on PlayStation. So go check some of those out. The other thing, and that's kind of the positive of where video games are at, the negative of where video games are at, are microtransactions. This has been really shitty development lately in games. The first thing I want to complain about is what started is when we had the 64 and I want to say the Xbox One and even the Xbox 360, you could still play co-op stuff with your friends. They could come over, you could play split screen, you could hook it up to another TV if you had two TVs and two consoles, and you could play. But split screen campaign was the shit. It was what you loved to do with your friends. We loved, and it was like great to go set Halo on Legendary and play split screen with your friends, and one of you gets murdered and the other one gets you to respawn, and there was just levels you couldn't beat without it. Today, you can't play a co-op shooter to save your fucking life. They just don't let you. They want everyone to have their own console. They want everyone to be on the internet connection. And it's really frustrated me that they have basically not listened to fans. And when the millions of fans have said, hey, can we please have co-op campaign back? And it's just been a big fuck you to the fans.
Yeah.
The second big fuck you to the fans is what's called microtransactions, and this is an even bigger problem. This gets credit for starting in mobile games on the cell phones. So these guys would make cell phone games that are free to download. And then it's like, well, but if you want to get to the next level, you can wait 8 hours, or you could pay 99 cents for this candy brick or whatever the fuck they're selling you. So people pay 99 cents and 99 cents and 99 cents and 99 cents. And they make a ton of money off these fucking people who will buy these microtransactions. Well, big time game developers saw that and they're like, shit, let's put that in our console games.
Yeah.
So now you're charging me $60 to buy the game, and then people are buying games like, for example, when it first came out, Star Wars Battlefront 2. You could pay to basically unlock things that would take you hours and days of grinding, of playtime to get just by playing it. You could unlock that with real world money. And this was really frustrating members of the gaming community who were saying, you're letting people get by with cash instead of skill. Yeah, you're making a nice boatload of money, but it takes me 72 hours of game time just to unlock Darth Vader, and this kid came in and bought him for $50. Like, fuck you. And then it got even worse with other games where you could pay to have better weapons. So people were literally paying to win games, and it led to this huge uproar in the gaming community. And I will say now, about 2 years down the road, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is a much better game. It's a completely different game. I still enjoy playing it. It's no longer pay to win. So it does work. They are listening. But you really have to be careful. I think EA and DICE are probably the two biggest perpetrators of this, where they charge you $60 for a game, or $99 for the special golden fuck you edition
right.
that you can only get through I can't. Every game has that game of the year gold edition now, and it's
right.
$100 fucking dollars, and you get in there and it's like, buy this outfit change, buy this new lightsaber color, buy this fucking new gun, buy this new skin, and it's just a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there, microtransactions, but they add up.
Yeah.
And it's pissing me off. It pissed me off when World of Warcraft came out, and I just thought it was another Warcraft game because I played 2 and 3. I took it home and they're like, well, you got to pay every month.
Right.
Like, fuck you, I already bought the game.
Right.
So microtransactions right now where we're at, it's not good, because game developers have realized they can make a little bit more money out of us. They can squeeze a little bit more.
And I mean, they're doing the same thing with the DLCs too. How do you feel about the DLC stuff? Because you pay a little bit more, but you get 1 or 2 levels or something.
Give me the fucking game,
Yeah.
Just release the goddamn game. LucasArts used to be, the Star Wars games used to be the most fun to play when it was under LucasArts, and they came out with new games all the time. And now that EA has control of them, and Disney bought them, it's like we've seen 2 games, and they're Battlefront 2 is good, but
Well, E3 just announced a brand new Star Wars game coming out.
I saw the gameplay today. I watched the gameplay. Gameplay just came out today. It looks cool, but again, I'm a little wary of it because I bought. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now because the second game was really bad. The first one was okay. It was with Starkiller and you were Vader's Secret Apprentice.
Yeah.
And it was cool, but again, it's like the first one was fun, But then the second one, the campaign was literally like 8 hours.
Yeah, it was super.
And when I got to the end of that campaign, I thought I was only at the halfway point of the game. I was like, why am I fighting Vader now? Oh, maybe I'll fight Vader, and like then one of us will run off and I'll finish the game. And I was like, wait, that's the fucking end?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe I just spent $60 to play for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Fuck you, dude. I played Red Dead 2. Took me 4 months to beat that campaign. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If you don't have an online mode, if there's no like online mode, you better give me a robust single player campaign with lots of different options that I can do to fulfill my time so that I want to play it multiple times.
Yeah, that second one was a cash grab for sure.
Second one's a cash grab, and this new one, the Fall, the Destiny, whatever it is, the new Jedi Order, Fallen Jedi Order, I can't remember, but it looks like a cool single player mode, but it looks like it's cool one time through.
Well, I like the story idea of it because I've always been like, okay, so they called all the Jedis back in to murder them. There's got to be one out there that like had a cool fucking story where he's like he escaped his murderers and then fucking bolted out
and this is a whole nother podcast issue, but after Disney bought Lucasfilm, they got rid of all those books that were out there and all the media and all the fan films. They just said those things don't count anymore. But there used to be some really cool books between 3 and 4, between Revenge of the Sith and New Hope, that talked about Jedi who survived Order 66 and had cool stories. So I am excited about the story. It is a cool time in the Star Wars universe, but I'm also like, I don't have my hopes up for it. If that makes sense.
Right.
I don't have my hopes up for much Star Wars related anymore.
I'm sorry. I really hope that this new one can do something for you.
I hope so.
To bring it back. But you already said the trailer wasn't doing it for you, so.
Yeah, I was like.
I like Rey's flippity flip. And I like Rey as a character. Everybody shits on Rey. I really like Rey.
Like I said, different podcast.
We're going to be doing that one pretty soon.
Good.
We got a little surprise coming up not long from now, but so where are we at as far as like the evolution of games? We've had our PlayStation 3, our 4, we're about to have 5.
I gotta say, like, our graphics have obviously never looked better. Sometimes like I see a game up on screen and I'm like, is that real? Is that no, that's a game. Okay.
Right.
I was like, is that a zombie show? Oh no, that's The Last of Us. Okay, or Days Gone.
I feel like where we're at right now is where I used to see things and been like, oh, that's a cut screen.
Yep.
Now I feel like the gameplay is where the cut screens used to be. And I think that I don't think we'll ever get to the place where it looks exactly like people. Although, like, The Last of Us kind of...
That's a long time.
Yeah, The Last of Us, like, that chick looked just like Ellen Page.
Yeah. So first time you saw that trailer, I was like, oh, Ellen Page doing video games.
Yeah, but I think that VR and getting more immersive into the games is going to be, like, the next wave of it. But I wonder who's out there, like we've seen it change where like, it was just Atari and then Nintendo and Sega. And is there a company out there that's getting ready to bring us the next big thing that all the other companies are going to have to stop this bullshit like you're talking about, being greedy. They're being greedy. They've got our money and they know it and they just keep fucking us.
If there's anything, I would just tell people, like I said, like go to PC. You can build yourself a PC gaming setup for between $500 and $700, which will last you a decade. And you will be able to get games from both consoles. You'll play whatever you want, and it is usually better and it's faster, and you can do it on a computer, which I always, I like having the mouse more than a controller.
Yeah, I've never played computer games, so I've never like.
Well, we're sitting here looking at your stupid Apple fucking computer. That's why. We don't do games. You fucking suck.
Apple does games.
No, they don't. They do Solitaire.
But it looks so fucking good on this system. Solitaire is the best on Apple.
I'm sorry. Fuck Apple. That's my flush of this week, is the whole company now.
All right, so I think that does it. I think we did it. Like, I think we brought video games from the Stone Age up until the Spaceman age where we're at now.
Yeah.
Brian, flush it or flaunt it.
I love it.
I fucking hate movies.
I love it.
You flush it. I flaunt it.
My flush it this week, I'm going to keep them video game related, is the latest installment of the NBA 2K series, NBA 2K19. I'm a big fan of sports games. I love the Madden series. I like the 2K series. I like fighting games. I've always enjoyed the 2K series because you could play as like the legends and you could play as Michael Jordan, which is something. It was funny because when I was playing basketball games as a kid, you couldn't play as Michael Jordan even when he was still in the league because he wouldn't give out his rights. So that always kind of sucked. Now it's like you can play as Michael Jordan, but somehow the game sucks. Like, it just falls flat.
Really?
Speaking of microtransactions, they want the game mode they push you towards is towards creating your own player and like getting drafted and like going through the league, but they want you to spend your real hard-earned cash on in-game credits to improve that player. Because if you just do the training to improve him, you get, you know, minuscule amounts of points. So they really are pushing people to spend a crazy amount of money to buy some of these like gold bundles that you see. And it's just insane. And I gotta say, I'm probably not gonna buy the next version of NBA 2K, which will bring like a 5 or 6 year run of that game being on my console to an end, because I'm kind of sick of it. And I sort of feel the same way about Madden's, although I hear next year's Madden is supposed to be amazing. But basically all they do with the sports games at this point is they change the rosters and they say, fuck you, deal with it. They don't make any improvements. They don't do anything new. So I'm kind of fed up with the whole sports games right now. I flaunt it. Everyone who's listening, if you're listening to a video game, you already know, but Red Dead Redemption. That game was fucking amazing. I just beat it. It took me 4 months to get through the campaign. I'm also very busy, but and the way I like to play open sandbox games like that is I like to do every single side quest. If there's a side quest pop up, I go do it. I don't like to rush through the campaign, and even with that at the end, I was like, man, I gotta get through this fucking campaign. This is crazy.
Yeah.
It had one of the best stories. It had amazing graphics. There was, I think 2 people can play that game and never have the same experience because there's so much different shit to do and so much different ways to do it. I like games that challenge me and make me think about different ways to accomplish things. So big shout out to Red Dead Redemption 2 and Rockstar Games. Rockstar Games is killing it. Keep killing it.
Yeah. What's crazy about that game too is like, even though everybody has the same character, by the end of it, he's a totally different character.
No
he can look
no
completely
two
different.
Arthurs look the same. It's amazing.
No. So that's really cool.
I ran around with a big beard. I had a grenadier hat on the whole time. Then I found you can go on the map and you can find this old Viking tomb. So I was running around with a Viking helmet and a Viking axe. So every cutscene, Arthur's just wearing this fucking Viking helmet. It was great.
That's awesome. My flush it this week, or my flaunt it this week. Let's go with that first. My flaunt it is we're gonna stick with zombie games for me. I'm a big fan of zombies. Still a fucking sucker for a good zombie film. Fear the Walking Dead just started up, and The Walking Dead has really lost me. It sucked, but Fear the Walking Dead has turned that shit right around. It's such a fucking good story, and I just love the characters on there. It's like, it's everything that Walking Dead is missing right now. But video game wise, the remake of Resident Evil 2 for the PlayStation 4, dude, I got to check that out for a little bit. Man, it's fucking good.
So you're stuck in the past, old man. You need to play Days Gone. I have heard that is the best.
That is my flush it for this week.
No shit.
Days Gone is a pile of dog duty.
You are kind of going against what everyone else is doing.
When I saw it, we went and saw it at Comic-Con, and I saw those graphics, and I was like, damn, this is an awesome game. And it sucks, dude. Like, your character is way too weak. You're in a world. I always like in this, like, I'm more of a Resident Evil guy where like you're in an alley and guys can't really get behind you and shit. Like, I appreciate that. Like, I don't like this, like, they can come from fucking everywhere, from on top of you, from underneath you.
That's called real life.
Well, that's the thing. That's probably the problem with the game, is it's too real life. You have to put gas in your fucking motorcycle to keep it going.
I love that shit.
I hate it, dude. I don't want to think. I'm trying to kill zombies. I don't have time to be thinking about gas.
I love that.
There's a motorcycle.
Fantastic medieval RPG. It has no magic, no nothing. It's set in historical events.
Yeah.
It's called Kingdom Come. It's on the Xbox and the PC. I think on PlayStation 2. It's fucking amazing because you have to, like, you got to remember to eat and sleep, and you got to remember to do all these things with, like, the people around you, or else they get pissed. Like, it's a super realistic fucking game.
Right, and Red Dead had that, but it has it enough where it's like, we're not going to fucking kill you every 5 minutes if you don't eat. Like, we'll give you a little, like, hint, hey, you need to eat. And you're like, oh, yeah, I got to eat some food. No big deal. I can handle that. But with this one, you don't have time to, like, think or fix anything. You're just, like, always swarmed by zombies. And it's just a pain in the ass. They're coming from everywhere. It seems like they're respawning.
I get that. I will say I get frustrated with games where I don't feel like I have a safe place to, like, go through my inventory or like repair my stuff. Like, yeah. When you don't have a spot where you can sit down and take a breather, games like that do get frustrating.
Yeah, and it's supposed to like up the tension, but for me it just like ups
too much.
the pissed off
it's
factor.
Too much
yeah,
tension.
I'm like,
it's too much.
This is supposed to be an enjoyable experience.
I was
like,
gonna say part of your video games. We do play video games to relieve stress and to have fun. So sometimes there are games out there like Prey. I played Prey when it first came out, and it was just like. Like every 5 seconds, like, God damn, what was that?
Yeah.
So, you know, it just takes that fun out of it.
That's how The Evil Within was for me. Like, that game was just like too much scary shit. And like, I couldn't enjoy it because I can't enjoy it if I've got poop in my pants the whole time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I want to choose when there's poop in my pants.
Right. Like a man.
Like a man
like
does
a grown-up man. I'll poopy all by myself.
You know what this means, Brian?
I get to fight someone.
It's time for F, Marry, Kill. The F stands for fuck. And fight.
Fight.
Tell me who you'd fuck, marry, and kill. This game is the definition of thrill. You have to pick, you have to choose. If you don't, you will lose. Tell me who you'd fuck, marry, and kill. Who you'd fuck, marry, and kill.
All right, Brian, this week's F, Marry, Kill, fight. Here are your choices.
It's Nickelback. I'm going to fight Nickelback.
Here are your choices.
That should be a choice every week, sorry.
Super Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog, Crash Bandicoot, Tomb Raider.
Oh! Oh no! I'm going to kill Sonic the Hedgehog.
Good choice.
Yeah. Because I'm picturing and as everyone is, since you can't get that image out of your head now from the original trailer, it's fucking terrible with those human teeth in his head.
Yeah.
What do you have, 90 of them in there?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I want to punch his teeth out and then saw him off at the legs.
Yeah, he's done for. I'm gonna help out Dr. Robotnik because me and Jim Carrey, we're like best friends, so it's just gonna be like, let's do this.
Yeah. And then just stab him in the eyes with his fucking little blue pokies off his back.
Man, creepy little bastard. So I'm gonna kill Sonic. I am gonna.
Decisions.
Yeah. I'm gonna fuck Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Right in that butt.
Yeah.
I hope it's the like 16-bit Tomb Raider too. I want those triangle titties.
Yeah. The Madonna cone bra.
Yep. Yeah. I want them to poke my eye out.
Yeah. Remember, this is a Super Mario brother.
Yeah.
This isn't just. We're not talking Bob Hoskins Mario. We're talking about a Super Mario, a pizza eating.
He's gonna go. He's gotta go.
Fireball throwing.
Yeah, I'm gonna kill Mario.
You already killed Sonic.
Oh, whoops. I'm gonna fight Mario. I'm gonna fight that little mustache out of his face.
Dude.
Like, why not? And I think
you can throw fireballs.
Yeah, it makes it fun. But I think if I married Crash Bandicoot, we would have a lot of fun. We have a very similar sense of humor, and we like to yell at people with bullhorns, so...
Right.
I feel like Crash Bandicoot and I are gonna make a great couple.
He lives in like a lush environment, too.
Yeah.
That's not like full of danger.
Shit out of Mario. Because I also, you don't want to hang out with Mario too much, you'll get kidnapped, and then I killed Mario off to come rescue you.
Yeah, it was like, I'm sorry, Mario, Brian's in another castle.
Yeah, like, fuck that.
Brian the machine gun. Yeah.
Watch me run around on a side scroller with a fucking machine gun.
Oh yeah, dude. Like if you were a video game, you'd be Contra.
What's Metal Slug?
Metal Slug. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, you know what you don't know what the name of it is, but you know which one I'm talking about.
Okay.
Metal Slug's the one where like you could go and like there was like the POWs tied up in rope and your guys like side scrolling along and they're like German tanks and like planes would come up and you'd like jump and you started with a pistol, you ended up with a machine gun. It was like in every arcade.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, I think that brings us to the end of our episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This trollop through memory lane.
Tell us what you think about video games. Send us a comment on Instagram.
Yeah, I want to hear what you guys think about video games.
Tell us about your video game memories.
Yeah, where did you get your first Nintendo? That's a story I didn't get to tell when I got my first Nintendo.
But we are out of Sorry about that.
This will be quick. I got my first Nintendo, and my parents we went on a camping trip, and so they just wrapped the game and gave it to me. And I was such an asshole little 12-year-old. I opened up the game and I was like, thanks a pant load, guys. I can't play this because I don't have the Nintendo system. And then they were like, we got that for you at home. And I was like, yeah! I was so excited, but I was like,
let's go home right now.
What a fucking dickhead I was.
Right. Well, we all were at 12.
Yeah. I don't think there's a non-dicky 12-year-old.
My first console my parents got was like the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, but you're 26 years old.
I was 26. I can't remember how old I was, but I was the youngest of 3 kids, and we were traveling in my mom's Honda Accord across the country to Charleston from Arizona. So we're going to South Carolina from Arizona. It took us 3 days. Wow. 5 people in this fucking car with the bags. I was in the middle the entire time, so my parents were like, take this Game Boy Color we got from Bookman's and shut the fuck up and play these games. And I think I played Pokemon on it. Pokemon and Super Mario.
Nice. Yeah. Good memories. And like we said, we want to hear about your guys' memories of your video game memories. What was your first system? And what was the circumstance that did you have to suck a dick for it?
Worth it.
Worth it. And also, we want to hear what you guys think of where video games are headed. Like, where are they going? What is the next thing? And are you guys the ones that are going to replace the PlayStation or the Sega? Is your company, your little company right now that you're building in your garage?
One of these indie gamers, man.
That's going to be the
next one. He's going to be an indie game maker that makes it big. These games are amazing that people are making on their own consoles.
It's going to be the one who figures out how to get your dick sucked in VR. The guy that figures that out is going to be the next big thing.
Trillionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
People will be just throwing money at him.
Yeah. Like, I would throw money at you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I only have like $5, but if you just let me use it for a second.
If I throw it at you as coins,
yeah,
it makes it look like I got more.
It's gold coins. All right. Check out our website. We've got Talking Poop t-shirts and Talking Poop hats. If you haven't gone to our website and checked that out yet, you need to see it to believe it, because these hats and shirts are amazing. Have you looked at them yet, Brian?
I have. The shirts are amazing. I saw yours at Comic-Con because you didn't get me one.
Yeah, no, but the website has ones you didn't even see and know about.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, you need to go on the website and check it out at our new store.
TalkingPoopPodcast.com.
TalkingPoopPodcast.com. And follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Talking Poop Podcast. Make sure you put that podcast in. Everybody's putting in Talking Poop. They can't find us.
You will get disturbing images if you
get the podcast. Yes, you will get images of poops, some with mouths on it. Yeah, so make sure you add that podcast in there.
And send us your ideas for a new name.
Brian, your book's still available?
It is. It's called Time to Myself. It's on Amazon. Compilation with me and 52 Western authors. It's a short microfiction. Go check it out and follow me on Instagram at Brian Gunn Books.
That's it for this week's Talking Poop. Join us next week when we talk some more poop.
See ya.
Bye, everybody. Bye.